Hi friends, it's Kayla Moran and welcome back to the Let's Get Candid podcast. How's everybody doing today? Happy Thursday, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever day or time it is that you're listening. So happy to be back on the mic with you guys. I'm back from my trip to Colombia and I'm really looking forward to diving right back in to life here in Miami. It's my favorite time of year. I feel like I've said this before. I come out of my shell in the spring and it's that time of year where one day could be really hot, the next day could be really nice and breezy, even though it's sunny, which is like what's happening these last 2 days. And I just really enjoy the weather like this. It makes me so happy. We had a thunderstorm a little bit on Monday, but the last 2 days have been beautiful and just makes me so happy that, next week is the Miami Grand Prix. I'm really looking forward to it. And we'll talk about that in a second. But just this time of year just makes me come alive because opportunities and events are abundant. There's something going on every single day, every single weekend. If I don't want to be in the house bored, I don't have to be, but there's also times where I'm like, nope, we're canceling plans, we're closing the calendar, and I'm just taking a chill pill and vibing by myself or with my friends at home or with my family. And it feels really, really nice. I just like that I have the opportunity to do that. And that's something I've been journaling a lot. One of my prompts now is what is something that is abundant in my life? And the last few days I've said support and opportunities because I would not have been able to get through the last 2-3 months or even my road trip without the support of my friends. Let's dive into that. So I know I just did a solo episode a couple of weeks ago before my road trip, or after my road trip actually, but there's just so much to talk about and I felt like I couldn't go into guest episodes without doing a catch up because I've been sharing a little bit about it on TikTok if you follow me. And I think it's important to discuss that there is times where things are just not okay for no particular reason. And I feel like I've been going through a period where like every day is different. Like one day I'm really good and then the next day I'm not. And I was holding a lot of that in because I didn't want to burden the people around me. And, everybody has their own shit, right? And I feel like for a little while there, everybody was kind of going through it, whether it was breakups or work issues or like health or just family stuff. Like there was just a lot going on in March universally as well, like the planets and all of that, astrology. And my TikTok was just bombarded with like all the different things that were going on and like people were just like struggling and that probably also like added on to it, compounded, and I just needed to take a breather. So I'm really grateful and lucky that I was able to go away for 2 weeks with my family and kind of try to take a chill pill and try to decompress, but it was a lot harder than I thought, especially going out of office for the first time as an entrepreneur, like truly fully out of office. Because when I went to North Carolina last year for a week with my family, I didn't go out of office. I was working. And I told my clients this time that I was going to be taking an out of office for a week and no work was going to be getting done. And there's definitely times where I slipped up and checked my emails and I was responding to emails a couple times, or like I had to because content was due for brand partnerships we had negotiated months ago, and that was okay. But I want to get to a point where I can be completely hands off, and that means delegation and hiring for my weaknesses and hiring a team and building one. And that's something that I'm working on. I've been talking about it for months, but one of my priorities for 2024 is scaling my businesses. I'm not trying to be a mega law firm that survives me or anything like that, but I definitely want to be able to build a business or multiple businesses that can work even when I'm not working myself. Not so much to be making me money, although that would be nice, but just more so that things are running smoothly and I can prioritize me when I need to. And there's going to be times in my life where that does come to fruition where, when I have a family or things like that. And I want to just be able to set boundaries but also know that things are running. And so that's something that I've been really thinking a lot about. And it got to a point where it was really overwhelming because I was also thinking of like all the things I want to do, all the things I need to do to get those things, my big picture goal plan, and then like writing down all the checklists things that need to happen to get to each one that's going to get to that bigger picture. And it got to be a little bit too much for a second, but thankfully, my friends and my family and my therapist really were able to get through to me and remind me to take a step back and that it's okay to feel the way that I'm feeling and it's okay to put a pause on things. And I had mentors and friends say, like, hey, if you need someone to be the fall guy while you take some time off, and like, I'll let you know, or I'll handle any emergencies that come up while you're gone. Just, I didn't need them to do that, and I never utilized them, but just knowing that I had that person who offered that to me was really reassuring. I had incredible opportunities coming my way for potential clients, conferences, speaking engagements, and travel opportunities for work as well. And just, it could also be overwhelming in that sense of just knowing that there's so many good things going on and so much coming to me, and just knowing, like, can I handle it? Questioning that. Do I deserve it? And so I really had to get in touch with my more spiritual side and go back to my roots, remember who I am and why I started. And so I wanted to take a moment to share that because I think it's important to, that trend that's going around on social media. Like, social media is fake. Here are 5 things I'm struggling with right now. I really appreciated that trend. I did it while I was away. And I'm going to read it to you guys because, it's hard to act like everything's okay online at all times, but that's of course what people want to see. And and when you're running a business on social media, you don't want to show the not so great parts because you want to show that you have it all together so your clients can work with you. And I've struggled with that, knowing when is the right time to show my personal, more vulnerable side and when to not do that for business purposes. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, the clients that come to me like me for me, and they know me and they like me because I'm vulnerable and they appreciate that side of me. And the ones who don't like that aren't maybe the clients for me. But when you grow up in a household that works in corporate America and doesn't really see it that way, it's sometimes really I struggle a lot with it. Sometimes really tough. I combine the 2 words there. To try to, understand why I'm doing things the way I'm doing, explain it to them, but also realize I don't have to defend myself to them because it's my business. I get to decide. However, yes, I do use my parents as a sounding board. I call them my board of directors. So it's definitely an ebb and flow, and it's a lot of learning and a lot of growth for sure in the last few months. As you guys may know, I did end my relationship. And so definitely reeling from all of that and all the lessons I learned there. And you hear that story, like, you'll keep being sent the same lesson over and over until you learn it. And I really thought that when I was entering that relationship, I was ready for one. And that's not to say that I wasn't, but I think I needed to go through that relationship to learn tenfold who I am in a relationship and what I'm looking for in a relationship and how I want to show up and how I want to feel and what happens when I'm not feeling my best or being treated the way that I deserve to be treated and want to be treated, and how I maybe am the one that's not treating the person right. And I had never been in a true relationship to know that. So that was a learning curve, and just all of that combined with work stressors and again that just sense of overwhelm of there's so many things I want to do, where do I even begin? And I've always been a to-do list person. I've always broken it down by day. I've shared it for accountability before, but for some reason it just still was becoming unmanageable, and I had to have a breakdown. I truly haven't broken down like that in 3 months since January, which was crazy to me because I used to joke that I'd have a mentee be every month. And I feel like that hasn't been happening lately. And part of it was because while I was in a relationship, I wasn't really having my internal monologue. I kind of let that go and realizing that I needed to bring that back. I needed to be more in tune with myself, and not just on a journaling capacity, but really just having alone time to think and process by myself. Since we've been home, I've been going to bed every night at 10 o'clock, which is super early for me, but it's been nice. It's been necessary to just lay in bed in the dark with my red light therapy on and just do nothing, truly. And I'm not good at that. productive rest is something that I'm really working on, and I want to share more about my journey to get to that point. And so that's why I started a series on LinkedIn called Lessons I've Learned as an Entrepreneur, and on TikTok I'm calling it Entrepreneurship Hacks because it's a little shorter, but same concept. And I'm just sharing things that I learned over the years as an entrepreneur. So I'm going to share that list with you as well in this episode. I'm just kind of telling you a little bit about what's been going on. That's kind of the update. I needed that time for myself to decompress, and definitely need to take it slower. I need to be better about setting boundaries for myself, with friends, with the people around me, with work. And I've gotten a lot better. The color-coded calendar and blocking out my unavailable days, or setting certain days for certain things only, and having a to-do list side by side broken down by day, but also remembering to give myself grace that I'm not going to get everything done in a day, and that's okay. And it's not the worst thing in the world if maybe some days you're not as productive as others. Some days your body just tells you, like, it's not going to happen today, and you have to listen to that. And I had one of those days on my trip, thankfully earlier on, where my family, my brother and my dad weren't in town yet. It was just me and my mom, and she was at the office. So I was in the hotel room working. Because the first half of the trip, the first week that I was in Colombia while I was in Bogota, I was working, and I was just like hanging out in the hotel room until my mom got out of work, and then we would explore at night. The second half of the trip was the family vacation, and that's where I was fully out of office. But the first week, the second or third day that I was there, I woke up, checked my emails, did some social media, did some content, went to the hotel, breakfast, came back, and instead of showering and getting ready for the day like I had the day before, and like that was my plan, I literally just fell asleep. Like, I bawled my eyes out and I went back to sleep for like 4 hours. And my body just needed that. My body just said, nope, not today. And I don't know the last time I've done that. And truly just given myself permission to feel it. Every other time that I had done that in the last few months, I felt guilty about it because, like, I should be working. I need to do this. But because I was on a trip, I gave myself permission to just feel it. And it felt so nice to just get it out. And that allowed me to, walk into the rest of the trip, like, with a clearer mind, even though that sense of overwhelm was for sure still there. And I think hormone issues have a lot to do with it. And, just my environment, not being in your own environment, not eating, even though we were eating incredible food and very good quality food, not eating things that I'm used to, drinking a little bit more than I normally do. That kind of stuff definitely was affecting me as well. But remembering to give myself grace at the end of the day, that's okay. But with all that being said, I feel like now that I'm home and I have kind of gone through this internal monologue and put it out of my system onto tangible paper or a notes app, and, made a plan, figured out what I'm going to do, what I'm going to prioritize, what I'm going to invest in so I can get to where I want to be, I feel a lot better. I feel a lot clearer. And there's something that I listened to on a podcast this morning. Mimi Bouchard was on the Skinny Confidential podcast again, and she said, one thing I've been doing differently than the first time I was on this podcast 2 years ago is I'm not so strict about routines anymore. Like, instead of living my life by a routine to get me to where my end goal is, I'm going to start living my life now as the future version of myself that I want to become, that I want to embody, that I want to be. Living in your self-actualized future, premier, self, like the version of you that you want to be, that you are building, you are aspiring to be, instead of waiting until someday to get there and thinking that these routines are going to get you there because that's what's worked for other people. She said, I'm going to start living that way today. And I'm going to start acting like the person that I want to be. So if I want to be the type of person that goes on 3 p.m. walks for an hour and takes my calls for an hour, instead of saying I'm going to become that person in 10 years when I'm a CEO, I'm going to do that now, for example. So things like that, it's definitely like something I want to take with me in the future. I only heard that this morning, but I think that's a valid point that I want to bring into my life, because I have been talking about this like version of myself, this vision in my life, this big picture goal, this life that I'm creating and building and dreaming of, but I'm not living the life of the Kayla that is going to be living that life, you know? I have at times and not at others. And I really want to work on little by little transforming myself into that version of me. So when that time comes, it just is a more easeful life. It just makes sense. It feels right instead of forcing myself to try to fit into a mold of this life that I've created, even though that's not the life that I'm living. You know, I can't be this wellness, you know, working out like hot mom, taking my kids to the park if right now I'm not doing that. If I'm not setting up those habits for myself to be a mom or a person, a business owner that focuses on wealth and mental health. Like I have been, but not to the extent where I want to be. And that's something that, I talked to Lauren Papino. She'll be on the podcast next week. She's a registered dietitian focusing on hormones and functional medicine. And her and I talked about, getting my hormones checked and what to look for and what happens when things aren't right. And like, what are the most common ways that, girls struggle with their hormones and like how that affects our bodies and our minds and everything. And, definitely want to get my levels checked out and start making those small but crucial changes. I want to start strength training. I want to do Pilates more. I want to transform my body so I can transform my mind and then transform my life. And instead of saying, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm actually going to get up and go and do it. And what's been holding me back is money, because financially I was investing everything back into my business, not into myself. And that again goes to why I want to scale so I can have my business running, so I can make more time for me to embody that future Kayla, instead of just saying I'm going to live that life when I get there, because there's no other way for me to get there than by living it right now. So that's a tangent, but that's also something that's been on my mind. But with all of that, let's take a look at, the things that I shared when we said, social media is fake, but these are some things I'm struggling with right now. So I said, being shadow banned on Instagram when my businesses depend on it. I definitely struggled with that lately. My views are just so low on everything. My stories, my reels, even my TikTok, which my TikTok has never been high, but I just don't know. Like if I Google myself, I have really good SEO. So it's not an SEO thing. I just don't know why my content's not being pushed out anymore. And as someone who lives on social media and created her business on social media, it's definitely really important to not so much for the validation of the numbers, but just to make sure there's eyes on it. So definitely struggling a little bit with that. And like the imposter syndrome of like, is this really working? Should I be doing this? Other people are doing better. And I know comparison is the thief of joy. And I don't like comparing myself. I rarely do it, and I'm grateful for that. I've always been an innately confident person. I struggle more with self-worth, but envy is just not a pretty color on anybody, and I don't like that feeling. It makes me so uncomfortable when I feel myself being jealous or envious, because it's just so unlike me. And so yeah, also reminding myself that there's a reason why it's not working out the way that I want it to right now. It's not meant to. There's more for me, and I just need to be patient. But patience is a virtue I do not possess. So we're working on that. Feeling overwhelmed and dissatisfied in my life and career after a breakup and unsure if I'm on the right path. And it has nothing to do with the breakup itself, like with that relationship itself. It's more that I realized, and I think I mentioned this in another episode, but when I was 23 and I built this vision in my head that was the life that I wanted to live, that I started working towards, and I started making decisions, reverse engineering my life to get there. And that's what made me go on this path of entrepreneurship and owning my own law firm and trademarks and contracts and working with influencers and entrepreneurs. That's where that all started at 23. I was a 2L in law school. When I made that vision in my head, when I created that vision board for the first time, I did it in the span of 10 years. So I was 23 and I was like, at 33, this is what I'm going to look like. This is what I'm going to feel like. This is what my life is going to look like and feel like. This is what I'm going to have, all of these things. And honestly kind of started putting so much pressure on myself to be that version and have all those things by a certain time, even though I never set out benchmarks to have certain things by certain times. But, now I'm 26, 3 years later, 7 more years to get to that goal. And I was like, wait, like I'm so much further along in some ways, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be in others. And when that breakup happened, it was really sad because I realized that I'm not going to get that right now. And I do want that, and it's a part of it, but it's not the right time, and this isn't the right person, and these aren't the right circumstances, which I think are three crucial things you need in a relationship to get in one. To maintain it is a different story. But, I really struggled with just feeling like I wasn't going to get that part of the life that I'm living or that I want to live in that version of myself that I want to embody if I end this, but I know that I have to. And, then it was a tailspin of like, is this the right career for me? Because everything's blowing up. And I feel like I blew up my life, but I knew that it was the right decision for myself. I chose myself, and I'm really grateful that I did. I'm really happy that I did, but definitely feeling overwhelmed and dissatisfied a little bit there because you can have it all, but not all at once. I've talked about that a million times, and it's something I have to remind myself of regularly because just because I don't have it right now and that wasn't the right time, person, or circumstance doesn't mean I'm not going to have it. And it can still happen. And I do feel that it'll happen, and I do feel that it's coming. I need a little more time, and that's okay. And I just need to be patient. A lot of these have a lot to do with patience. Living at home at 26 is really challenging, even though at times, even though I have autonomy. And again, I'm really lucky and privileged that I get to live at home. My parents allow me to and support me in living at home while I build my businesses. I would not be able to have my own firm and live alone. Like, the money doesn't go that far quite yet, even though I'm doing really well financially in a lot of ways, and like investments and savings and revenue, overhead and expenses do add up. And that's something that I've learned in business too, is one of my lessons is that the more you earn in revenue, the more your overhead goes up. And systems and processes and software gets more expensive because you're doing more. And so that's been something I've learned a lot. And so reminding myself that it's okay to be living at home at 26, and maybe that's not everybody's path, but that's mine. And it doesn't make me any less for being in my 20s and living at home, or my mid to late 20s and living at home. That's very common, especially in Latin households. And that's okay. And I'm grateful that my parents allow me to, and they do give me a lot of autonomy, but sometimes wishing like I could just like be alone and not have to talk to people, or not have to share space with other people, or that I could buy my own groceries, or that I could cook my own meals and not have to, there's only so much space in the fridge. But so I can't have all the things that I want. I can't run my household and my life the way I want to completely, but I can do a lot of things, and I can do more. So definitely gonna make some changes around the house in that sense for my own sake. But, yeah, that's been an interesting one for sure. And I am saving to buy a house, and the goal is next year. But again, I'm not going to put any pressure on myself to do it. I'm keeping my eyes and ears open for sure, and manifesting it and journaling it. But, I know that everything happens when it's meant to and how it's meant to. I'm also struggling right now with a couple of friendships. I'm reconnecting with my college friends since I kind of disconnected with them while I was in a relationship, and leading up to that, just little things here and there. And, reconnecting with some of my friends here in Miami, and struggling with some friends. Like, again, a lot of us having a lot going on, just like little arguments and bickering here and there, and silent treatments, and just, feeling disconnected. Like, maybe this person needs some time, but I don't want space from them. I crave that connection, and I'm vulnerable, and I need a hug, but they're not able to give me that. And so definitely a little bit of an adjustment there with friendships, but it feels really, really good to be reconnecting with my college friends. And I feel like I'm building a really solid community for myself here in Miami, but also in other cities. And I definitely want to make a trip back up to my college town, and I want to go back to my law school town and see people in Nashville as well. And New York for work, LA for work. So there's a lot of travel on the horizon for this year and probably next year too. I know of weddings that are coming up in the next years, and things are exciting on the social aspect, but on others, it's definitely a little bit more challenging because also as we get older, we don't just have as much time to spend with each other because we're busy, and it's okay. But you have to make time for each other and prioritize each other, and not everyone's capable of prioritizing at the time that you're ready to. So also knowing that, and you know, it's a challenge for sure, but again, just another factor that contributes to the sense of overwhelm, but not something I can control, and reminding myself that I can't control everything and that's okay, even though I really struggle with letting go of control. I've mentioned my hormones kind of being out of whack and not feeling like myself, and like what I'm going to do about that. And that episode next week that you guys will listen to is all about that. So stay tuned. I mentioned feeling like I'm really behind in a lot of ways and super ahead in others. Again, super ahead in the sense that I have my own business. I'm doing really well. I was able to pay my taxes. I still have money put away. I have a lot of investments. There's always more I can be doing. And that's something that I've made a video on. Like, there's always more you can be doing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be doing more, because at some point you need to take time to stop and to pause and to reflect and check in. And is this what I want? Is this working? What isn't working? What can I do differently? And productive rest. So that's another one. Trying to act like I'm okay all the time to not worry my friends and family, since I struggle with mental health issues. I was holding all of these feelings in until I just snapped one day, because I didn't want to burden my friends and family with like, oh, here she goes again, another bad day. When in the last month I had just been having a lot of bad days because I was really sad about the breakup and the overwhelm and all the things I want to do and everything else. So, I had to give myself grace and remind myself that it's okay to reach out and to ask for help. And I'm grateful that I went back to therapy. And while I was gone, I had an emergency therapy session. She texted me and I was like, actually, I need to talk to you. And I had a heart-to-heart with two of my friends, one of them being my podcast editor, which I really appreciate, and one of them being my childhood best friend from when we were literally 10 years old. And yeah, it's been nice to know that I have that support system. So again, when I wrote in my journal, it was that first time that I wrote it, like, what is something that is abundant in my life right now? Support and opportunities, absolutely. Work from home life is not always good for me, and I'm debating getting a co-working space, but not sure yet how I'm going to afford it. Going back to like the autonomy and living at home, everybody else in my family leaves for their day job and comes back home. I'm the only one that, they're hybrid, but I'm the only one that's home 24/7. The only times I leave and don't work from home during the day is when I go work from a coffee shop, and that's not, it's helpful and the change of scenery is nice and I really do enjoy it, but there's times where I need a dedicated workspace, so I need to be home. But those are just days where I don't want to be in the house. Like, I need to get dressed, I need to get up, I need to go somewhere, and I can't reconcile the two. So I'm thinking of investing in a co-working space where I can have a dedicated workspace to myself, like a mini office, like my own office in a studio space, or a space like a suite of offices or something like that. And it's not for clients to come in. All of my clients are virtual. It's more for me, and also having a podcast studio set up in there as well so I can make video content. So we're thinking about it. We're working it out. We're looking at the numbers, getting quotes, and maybe I'll make that change. I think that would be really beneficial for me to be able to have some separation between work and my home life, like separation of church and state. But I just don't know how, again, with systems and operations and other things, like there's only so much money I have at any given point in time to invest in certain things. I don't have like unlimited cash flow right now. I have to be strategic. I have to be scrappy as a new business owner. And like technically this is a startup. Like, I'm treating my law firm like a startup because it is a startup. And so remembering to be strategic about that, just keeping in mind, like, I don't have investors and there will never be investors into this. So I'm the biggest investor, but I also have to invest in my personal sanity and mental health. So that's another thing. And lastly, of the many, struggling to save money while scaling my businesses. And that makes a lot of sense. There's only so much cash, there's so much revenue the business is generating, which meaning after expenses, there's only so much that I'm profiting. And then I have to pay myself. And, when it comes down to take home, it's a whole lot less than what I made. And reconciling the number in my business bank account is not the number in my bank account. And that's okay. And knowing I want to do all of these things, I want to save and invest for a home and to freeze my eggs and to travel and to do all of these things, buy a new car, insurance, retirement accounts, all of these things that I want to put money towards. These are all buckets that are important to me, but I'm not there yet. And I have to be strategic in where I put money into and where the ROI is and maybe where I can come back. And, having an accountant is an expensive resource, but it is necessary for me to have someone looking at my numbers and my financials and giving me the cash flow number to know, okay, this is what I can do this month. And I'm restructuring some deals and contracts with clients to ensure that I have more cash flow and more money coming in, obviously raising prices and things like that and new offerings. So we're working on it. But like I said, it's been quite a lot of things on my mind. And that's just to share, that's the life of a business owner. And that's something that people do not talk about at all, is that there's a lot more that goes into being a business owner than owning a business and saying you own a business on social media. And, it's fun and it's incredible and I'm grateful for it and I wouldn't change a minute of it. But there are definitely times where it kind of shit hits the fan all at once. And that was definitely the last few months for me. So I'm really looking forward to spring. I have a good feeling, I guess basically summer now. I have a really good feeling that things are going to look up. I can sense it. I've been an energy and a vibes person and a gut intuition person for my entire life. And I can sense that the tides are changing. Like I said, the opportunities are there. They are coming. There is a lot of work coming my way. And now I just need to restructure my life and set boundaries and find ways to make room for all of the opportunities that I'm getting while still making room for myself and my social life and my family life and time for me. And maybe some point in the future dating again as well, but I'm not quite there yet. And we'll talk about that as that comes. I can't remember now what the other video is that I mentioned I want to share, but this is getting a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. So, and I think that's a lot for one day, but there's so much I want to share and do, and we're going to work through it together. I think it's helpful for me to put this out into the universe so I can get it off my mind and off my heart and out of my system, and also reconnect with you guys. And I know that I'm not the only one feeling this way. I know that I'm not alone. I want you to know that you're not alone. And that's why I want to share more of these conversations. And I know that they're not always popular or, not everyone likes it. I'm so open about these things, but it works for me. And I think it's important that someone is honest about this, because as much as I want everyone to live the life that they are meant to, and I want to give them the tools and resources and opportunities to get there, I don't want anyone to ever go in blind. I am grateful that I have a network of mentors and people who have done this before, who have been open with me about it. But something that I've always struggled with in that sense is that the majority of those people that are my mentors in this particular space have a support system financially that is like a partner or a previous salary that has allowed them to grow slower, or they have more money, they have a house already or something like that, and they're not trying to do all these things at the same time. And again, reminding myself that everyone runs their own race and everything happens for a reason, and that I can have it all, just not all at the same time, has really been crucial for me in just teaching myself patience and self-love and hugging myself and being grateful for where I'm at and how far I've come in my healing journey and my growth journey, and giving myself grace on the days that I maybe revert back into those older patterns of thinking and feeling and acting, and just remembering why I'm acting and thinking and feeling that way. And, it's definitely been overwhelming, but almost in a good way, in that sense of just remembering how far I've come and being really, really proud of myself for that, and knowing that the people around me also see it and remind me of that. And Damn it, I didn't want to cry. But yeah, so here's a little snippet of what to look forward to. I am launching a new arm of my endeavors, another vehicle for me to serve my community and my audience, geared towards law students, and not just law students, anyone technically wanting to go to grad school, but primarily law students. Of course, that's my focus, but really just college graduates and like the post-grad adjustment, and helping and guiding people into who they are meant to be, which is ironic because I've been talking about how I'm overwhelmed with the version of myself that I want to be and how to become her. But I have a lot of tools in my tool belt that I just need to start implementing or, leaning into more that I want to teach. So finding ways to do that. I'm building my website for my law firm. I am focusing more on PR outreach and for speaking engagements for podcasts, going and talking to law schools, things like that. I definitely want to be more involved in my community and in a physical capacity as well. And then I want to get back into philanthropy as well in the community, just like myself, whether it's donations or donating my time, that kind of thing, and scaling my businesses and hiring and delegating and growing my team. And of course, more travel always on the horizon, potentially New York at some point in the summer, possibly twice. I would definitely like to do an LA trip at some point in the future, and I'm thinking Knoxville, Nashville in the fall, going to Napa for sure in the fall, and if I can swing a Europe trip, but I don't foresee that happening at this point. Not sure, but I know next year there will be some international travel involved as well. So, definitely a lot to look forward to. I feel better already just getting this out. I feel much lighter. I hope this was helpful. I hope I didn't overwhelm you with my overwhelm, but something that I've been really reminding myself of is that, it's okay to be where I'm at right now. It's actually a really beautiful thing, and I don't have to put so much pressure on myself to be perfect or to reach my potential. That's one of my biggest fears, is not reaching my full potential and letting go of control. I tackled my fear of losing my independence in a relationship this year, and I'm really glad about that one. But there's definitely more fears to tackle, and, little by little, baby steps. It's a marathon, not a race, or not a sprint. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. And it's gonna be okay. And I'm just really grateful for the support system and the people I have in my life. And I'm so grateful that I have you, my audience, who has been with me every step of the way. And I look forward to continuing to share this journey with you guys. And if you're an entrepreneur or wanting to be an entrepreneur and this was helpful or gave you a lot to think about, please do reach out to me. Happy to always chat with you guys. I offer networking and consultation services for that, business strategy calls as well on the law firm side, shameless plug. But that's again why I want to build a website, and I want to optimize my blog's website so you guys know what I'm doing and you have a tangible place to get all of the information, as well as check out my newsletter and my networking template. I'll link those below so you guys can get them. And yeah, like I said, there's a lot to look forward to. Summer is looking bright. I can't wait to see you on the racetrack, the Miami GP next weekend, and there's a lot more to come on the Let's Get Candid podcast. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you liked it, please leave a rating and review. Please subscribe to the show, share with a friend, tag us as you're listening. Let me know who you want to see next and what topics you want me to cover next, whether it's a solo or a guest. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. See you next week.